The alarm system started screaming at exactly 0400 station time. Vexthor's 4 eyes snapped open in his sleep pod. His antennae twitched with confusion. In 30 years of working at Sentinel's Eye monitoring station, he had never heard that sound before. He rushed to the main control room, his 6 legs moving fast across the metal floor. Other crew members were already there, all looking scared and confused. The screens showed nothing but red warnings. Every single sensor on the station was going crazy. "What is happening?" Vexthor demanded. His voice clicked and buzzed through his translator device. "We don't know, sir," replied Kelleth, a young engineer with blue skin and 3 fingers on each hand. "Every sensor activated at once. Radiation detectors, quantum scanners, dimensional monitors, everything, but they're not showing us what triggered them." Vexthor moved to the main console. His trained eyes scanned the data streams. Nothing made sense. The numbers were too high, too strange. This wasn't like any stellar event he had ever seen. It wasn't a supernova. It wasn't a black hole forming. It wasn't a wormhole opening. Could it be a weapon? Asked Trillax, the station's security officer. Her scales reflected the red warning lights. "No," Vexthor said slowly. "Weapons have signatures we recognize." "This is different." Dr. Renna floated over to them. She was a cloud of gas held together by a containment field, one of the few species that existed without a solid body. Her voice came from a speaker attached to her field generator. "I've been analyzing the patterns," she said. "This isn't random chaos. There's structure in it, organization, like a language, but not one we can understand." That made everyone stop and stare at her. "You mean it's communication?" Vexthor asked. "Maybe. Or maybe it's something we don't have words for yet." Vexthor made a decision. "Activate the deep space triangulation array. I want to know where this is coming from." The crew worked fast. Ships and stations across 3 sectors started sharing data. The Galactic Council had built this network to detect threats early. Now all of it focused on finding the source of this strange frequency. Hours passed. The signal didn't stop. It didn't get weaker. If anything, it was getting stronger. Vexthor hadn't eaten or rested. He stood at the main screen watching the triangulation program work. Behind him, his crew whispered nervously to each other. Some of them had called their families. "Some of them prayed to their gods, sir," Kelleth said quietly. "I found something in the archives. This frequency, it's been here before." "What do you mean?" "It was there in our background readings. Very faint. For the last 60 years, maybe longer. We thought it was just cosmic noise, but now it's 1,000,000 times stronger." Vexthor felt his blood run cold. Something had been broadcasting for decades and they never noticed. Now it was screaming loud enough to overwhelm their most powerful sensors. "The triangulation is complete," Dr. Renna announced. Everyone gathered around the main display. A star map appeared, showing their position and millions of other stars. A bright red line traced from their station toward the source. The line pointed to the outer edge of the galaxy, to a region marked as Zone 7J. Vexthor knew that designation. "No," he whispered. "What's in Zone 7J?" Trillax asked. Vexthor pulled up the file with shaking hands. A yellow star system. Catalogued 200 years ago. 9 planets. The 3rd planet has life. Primitive life. Pre-spaceflight. "But that's impossible," Kelleth said. "Primitive species don't have technology that could create this kind of signal." "They weren't supposed to," Vexthor agreed. He zoomed in on the file. There were old images of the planet, mostly blue with green and brown land masses. White clouds. The file had a species classification. Humans. Status pre-contact. Quarantine in effect. Humans, Dr. Renna said softly. "I remember reading about them in xenobiology studies. They were violent, always fighting each other. No telepathy, no empathy fields, no natural consciousness connection. The council decided to watch and wait." "How long ago was that file updated?" Trillax asked. Vexthor checked. His heart sank. 197 years ago. The room went silent. Almost 2 centuries without checking on them. Anything could have happened in that time. "Send emergency alerts to the council," Vexthor ordered. "All frequencies. Maximum priority. Tell them the signal is coming from the human world. Tell them we need ships here now." "Should we tell them what we think it is?" Kelleth asked. "We don't know what it is," Vexthor said. "That's what scares me." As Kelleth sent the messages, Vexthor stared at the image of the blue planet. Somewhere down there something had changed. The primitive humans had done something that made every advanced sensor in 3 sectors lose control. He pulled up more data on humans. The old reports called them creative but dangerous, emotional but clever. They had split the atom before leaving their own planet. They had created artificial intelligence while still bound by gravity. What had they created now? The frequency pulsed through the station again. This time Vexthor felt it in his mind. Just for a second. Like someone was screaming and laughing and crying all at once right inside his thoughts. Dr. Renna made a sound like wind through metal pipes. Did everyone feel that? They all nodded. Even Trillex, who had natural mental shields, looked shaken. Whatever they're broadcasting, Dr. Renna said, it's not just affecting our machines. It's affecting us. Vexthor looked at the planet on his screen. The humans had no idea what they were doing. They couldn't know that the entire galaxy could hear them now. He just hoped the galaxy would be merciful when it answered. Commander Zelith stood on the bridge of the warship Talon's Grace, watching the yellow star grow larger on the view screen. Behind her ship, 15 other vessels from different council species followed in formation. Scientists, soldiers, diplomats, all heading toward a world that was supposed to be harmless. Her feathers ruffled with unease. Zelith had served in the council fleet for 40 years. She had seen wars, first contacts, and stellar disasters. But she had never seen the council move this fast. The emergency alert from Sentinel's Eye had reached High Command only 6 days ago. Now they were already here at the edge of the human system. Distance to the 3rd planet? She asked. 4 light hours, Commander, replied her navigator. A being made of liquid crystal who poured himself across the control panel. Maintain position. Begin long-range scans. The science officer, a massive creature with too many arms, worked at his station. Scanning now. The frequency is definitely coming from this system. It's everywhere, Commander. Like the whole solar system is vibrating with it. Zelith felt it too. A pressure in her mind that shouldn't be there. She had mental training. Shields that protected her thoughts. But this frequency was pushing against those shields like water against a dam. What are the archives saying about these humans? She asked. Another officer pulled up the old files. First contact survey conducted 197 years ago. The humans were observed from orbit for 6 months. Classification, intelligent but primitive. Technology level, early industrial age. No space travel. No energy weapons. High violence levels. Recommendation, quarantine until they either achieve peaceful space travel or destroy themselves. And we just left them alone for 2 centuries. That's protocol, Commander. We can't interfere with pre-spaceflight species. We can only watch, Zelith clicked her beak in frustration. Did anyone actually watch them? Silence on the bridge. She knew the answer. The galaxy was huge. The Council had thousands of pre-spaceflight species to monitor. Most stayed primitive for centuries or killed themselves with their own weapons. The humans were just another file in a vast database. Bring up current scans of their planet, Zelith ordered. The screen changed. The blue planet appeared, rotating slowly. Zelith saw lights on the dark side. Lots of lights. Cities, she realized. Huge cities covering large parts of the continents. Magnify, she said. The image zoomed in. Structures, roads, vehicles, and something else. Things moving in orbit around the planet. They have satellites, the science officer said, sounding surprised. Hundreds of them. And space stations. They're in space, Commander. But no FTL drives? No, nothing capable of faster than light travel. But they have fusion reactors. Advanced computers. Artificial intelligence. Quantum communications. The science officer paused. They advanced fast. Very fast. Zelith studied the planet. 200 years ago, these humans were barely able to fly. Now they had orbital infrastructure and fusion power. That was unusual. Most species took much longer. What about the frequency? She asked. The science officer's many hands moved across multiple screens at once. It's getting stronger as we approach. Commander, I'm reading something strange. The frequency isn't coming from a single source. It's coming from the entire planet. Like billions of small transmitters all broadcasting at once. Billions. Yes, spread across all the continents. Concentrated in the cities, but present everywhere humans live. Dr. Cretan, the fleet's chief biologist, stepped forward. She was reptilian, with scales that changed color based on her mood. Right now they were dark purple, which meant she was deeply troubled. Commander, she said, I need to show you something. May I use the main screen? Zalith nodded. Kraton brought up a different display. It showed wave patterns rising and falling in complex rhythms. This is what the frequency looks like when we analyze it, Kraton explained. Now look at this. She pulled up another pattern. It was similar but much smaller and quieter. This is a brainwave scan. Neural activity from a conscious mind, Zalith stared. The patterns weren't exactly the same, but they were close. Too close to be coincidence? Are you saying the frequency is thought patterns? Zalith asked. Consciousness itself? Amplified to an impossible degree, yes. I believe that's exactly what it is. The bridge went silent. Everyone was trying to understand what that meant. But humans aren't telepathic, one of the officers said. The old surveys confirmed it. No psychic abilities at all. That's one reason they were rated non-threatening. They weren't telepathic 200 years ago, Kraton agreed. But something changed. Zalith felt the pressure in her mind again. She closed her eyes and concentrated. For just a moment, she let her shields drop slightly. The sensation was overwhelming. Voices. Millions of voices. Billions. Not words exactly, but feelings, emotions, thoughts. Joy and anger and fear and love and hatred all mixed together. It was chaos. Beautiful, terrible chaos. She raised her shields quickly, breathing hard. Is anyone else sensing this? She asked. Around the bridge, the telepathic species nodded. Even those with only weak mental abilities looked uncomfortable. It's like standing next to an explosion, said the navigator. Except the explosion never stops. Dr. Kraton's scales shifted to dark red. Commander, all council species have something in common. Those of us who achieved space travel, I mean. We all developed psychic abilities early in our evolution. Telepathy, empathy, mental bonding. We learned to sense each other's thoughts. Yes, everyone knows this, Zalith said impatiently. And because we could sense each other's thoughts, we learned control. We built mental shields. We made our thoughts private. It's basic childhood training for every species in the council. What's your point, Doctor? My point is that humans didn't evolve psychic abilities. They're consciousness blind. They can't hear each other's thoughts naturally. So they never learned to shield them. For their entire history, every human mind has been broadcasting at full power, but no one could hear it. Not even other humans, Zalith began to understand. Until now, Kraton confirmed. They built something. Some kind of technology that connects their minds. An artificial telepathic network. And because they don't know how to shield themselves, because they never needed to, they're broadcasting everything. Billions of completely unshielded, incredibly loud human minds, all connected and transmitting at once. That's impossible, someone whispered. That much uncontrolled psychic energy could affect every sensitive species within light years, Kraton finished. Yes, it already is. Zalith turned back to the view screen looking at the blue planet. Down there, billions of humans lived their lives completely unaware that their thoughts were screaming across space. Unaware that they had just announced their existence to the entire galaxy in the loudest way possible. Get me a secure channel to High Command, Zalith ordered. Tell them what we found. Tell them we need xenopsychologists, consciousness experts, and... She paused. And tell them to prepare the council for an emergency session. We need to decide what to do about humanity. Fast. Because Zalith knew one terrible truth. The galaxy had rules about species that couldn't control their consciousness. Those rules were old and harsh, and they usually ended with extinction. Sarah Chen rubbed her tired eyes and stared at the code on her screen. It was 2 a.m., but she didn't care. This was the most important project of her life. Maybe the most important project in human history. The Global Consciousness Network. GCN for short. 5 years of work. Thousands of scientists, trillions of dollars. And tomorrow they would finally connect the last region. Tomorrow every human on Earth would be part of the network. Her phone buzzed. A message from her colleague, David. Can't sleep either? This is really happening. Sarah smiled and typed back. Nervous and excited. Did you ever think we'd actually finish it? No, David replied. But here we are. 8.7 billion people, all connected. One shared consciousness. Well, sort of. Sarah leaned back in her chair. The GCN wasn't magic. It was technology. Quantum neural interfaces that linked human brains through a vast computer network. People would still be individuals. They would still have private thoughts. But they could also choose to share. To feel what others felt. To think together it would end isolation. That was the dream. No one would ever be truly alone again. Her screen flickered. Strange. Sarah frowned and ran a diagnostic. Everything looked normal. Probably just tired eyes playing tricks on her. Across the planet in Geneva, Dr. Miranis studied the data with growing horror. She had arrived on Earth 3 days ago with Commander Zelith's investigation team. They came in secret using stealth technology to hide their small scout ship. The Council needed to know what humanity had done before making first contact. Now Miranis understood, and she was terrified. She had spent her life studying consciousness. Her species, the Quentar, were natural empaths. They felt emotions like humans felt temperature. It was just part of existing. And like all Council species, they learned to control it from childhood. But humans were different. So different it was almost beautiful. "Commander," she said into her communicator, "I need to present my findings immediately." 20 minutes later, she stood in the scout ship's briefing room. Commander Zelith sat across from her, along with 3 other senior officers. "Tell us what you've learned, Doctor," Zelith said. Miranis activated the holographic display. An image of the human brain appeared, glowing with neural activity. "This is a human mind," she began. "Completely isolated. No natural telepathy. No empathy field. No consciousness connection to other humans whatsoever. For their entire evolution, humans have been alone inside their own heads." She pulled up another image. This one showed thousands of brains, all connected by glowing lines. 3 days ago, they activated something they call the Global Consciousness Network. It's artificial telepathy, created through quantum neural technology. Every human is now connected to this network. "We know this," one of the officers said impatiently. "Why is it causing the frequency?" Miranis took a breath. "Because humans don't know how to shield their thoughts. Let me explain. When my people evolved empathy, we also evolved control. If we didn't, we would go insane feeling everyone's emotions all the time. The same is true for every telepathic species. Mental shields develop alongside mental abilities. It's survival." She zoomed in on a single human brain in the network. Humans never needed shields. They were never connected before. So their minds broadcast at full power, completely raw and unfiltered. Now take that broadcast and multiply it by 8.7 billion. All connected. All transmitting. All completely unaware they're doing it. Zelith's feathers stood up. 8.7 billion unshielded minds? Yes, and human consciousness is intense, uniquely so. Because they evolved without telepathy. They developed other things. Powerful emotions. Incredible creativity. Complex contradictory thoughts. They feel everything so strongly because they never had to worry about broadcasting those feelings to others. Miranis pulled up a comparison chart. "Look at this. On the left, the average emotional intensity of a Quentar mind. On the right, a human mind. The difference was shocking. The human reading was 10 times higher." "They feel more than we do?" asked an officer. "They feel the same things, but louder, stronger, without filters. A human experiencing joy feels it with complete intensity. Same with sadness, anger, love, fear. Everything is turned up to maximum because there's no evolutionary reason to keep it quiet." She paused. "Now imagine 8.7 billion of those intense, unshielded minds all connected and broadcasting. That's what's creating the frequency. That's what every sensitive species within light years is feeling. Raw human consciousness, amplified through technology they built without understanding the consequences." The room was silent. "They don't even know they're doing this?" Zelith asked. "No, to them the network is working perfectly. They can share thoughts and feelings with each other. They think it's contained to Earth. They have no idea they're broadcasting into space. How could they? They can't detect consciousness naturally. They're completely blind to it." One of the officers spoke up. "This is a disaster. We need to shut down their network." "We can't," Miranis said. "It's completely decentralized. Billions of individual receivers. Thousands of quantum satellites. Even if we wanted to destroy it, we'd have to destroy their entire technological infrastructure." "Then what do we do?" Miranis displayed one more image. It was from the Council archives, thousands of years old. "There was another species like this," she said quietly, "long before any of us were born. The Vrentok. They were consciousness loud like humans. They disrupted telepathic species across their entire sector. The Council tried to teach them control, but they couldn't learn fast enough. Their broadcasts caused pain, madness, even death in sensitive species." "What happened to them?" Zelith asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. The council decided they were too dangerous to exist. They were removed, all of them. It's one of the darkest moments in council history, but the laws created afterward are still in effect. Any species that broadcasts uncontrolled consciousness on this scale is classified as a psychic hazard. And the penalty for being a psychic hazard? Quarantine at minimum, forced sterilization of the population, or complete elimination if they can't be contained. The room fell into heavy silence. Miranis looked at each of them. I need to tell you something else. I've been studying human culture through their networks, their art, their music, their literature, their history, and I've been experiencing their consciousness directly, despite the pain it causes me. Why would you do that? An officer asked. Because I needed to know what we'd be destroying. Miranis' voice was thick with emotion. Humans are remarkable. Yes, they're loud. Yes, they're chaotic, but their consciousness is also beautiful. They think in ways we never could. They feel things we've learned to suppress. They create art that makes no sense but touches something deep inside you anyway. They're brilliant and terrible and contradictory and alive in a way I've never seen before. She looked directly at Commander Zelith. If we destroy them, we won't just be removing a psychic hazard. We'll be committing genocide against a species that's unique in the galaxy, maybe unique in the universe. Zelith stood slowly. I need to report this to the council. They'll need to decide. What will you recommend? Miranis asked. Zelith was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I don't know yet. But I do know one thing. We need to make first contact. Soon. Before the military faction decides to act without waiting for debate. In her apartment, Sarah Chen finally closed her laptop. Tomorrow would change everything. She just had no idea how right she was. The council chamber was the largest room Sarah Chen had ever seen. It was circular, with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Representatives from 60 different alien species sat in those seats, and every single one of them was staring at her. 3 days ago, the alien ships had revealed themselves. The entire world had panicked. Then Commander Zelith had sent a message in perfect English, asking to meet with Earth's leaders and the creators of the GCN. Now Sarah stood on the central platform with 5 other humans, facing the most powerful government in the galaxy. Speak, commanded a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The translator they'd given Sarah felt strange on her ear, but it worked perfectly. She cleared her throat. We didn't know, she said. We had no idea anyone else was out there. We didn't know we were broadcasting. We're sorry for any harm we caused. Sorry. The voice belonged to a creature that looked like a giant insect. Your frequency has caused pain to billions. Telepathic species cannot sleep. Empaths are going mad. You are disrupting communications across 3 sectors. And you're sorry? Sarah felt her face burn with shame and anger. We said we're sorry. We didn't do it on purpose. How are we supposed to know? We can't hear thoughts. That, said a different voice, softer and sad, is precisely the problem. A being that looked like it was made of water flowed down to the platform. Sarah recognized her. Dr. Miranis. She had been the first to make real contact to explain what humanity had accidentally done. The council must understand, Miranis said, addressing the chamber. Humans are unique. They evolved intelligence without any psychic ability. This has never happened before with a space-capable species. The Vrentok, someone started to say. The Vrentok had weak telepathy, Miranis interrupted. They knew what they were doing. They couldn't control it, but they knew. Humans are completely blind to consciousness. Asking them not to broadcast is like asking us not to breathe. They don't know they're doing it. A crystalline being at the highest tier spoke. Its voice was ancient and heavy. I am Elder Tharun. I was present at the judgment of the Vrentok 3,000 years ago. I voted for their removal. It was necessary then. It may be necessary now. Sarah felt ice in her stomach. Removal? You mean killing us? If you cannot be contained, yes. The law is clear. A psychic hazard of this magnitude cannot be tolerated. But we're not trying to hurt anyone, Sarah's voice cracked. Give us a chance. Help us understand how to fix this. Can you fix it? Tharun asked. Can you shut down your network? Sarah looked at her colleagues. They all shook their heads. No, she admitted. It's decentralized. Built into billions of devices. Even if we wanted to destroy it, we couldn't. Not without destroying our entire civilization. Then you see our problem, Tharun said. You have built something you cannot stop. something that harms others. What choice do we have? Commander Zaleth stood from her seat. There is another option. We could teach them to shield their thoughts. Impossible, said the insect being. Mental shielding takes years of training. It requires natural psychic sensitivity to even understand the concept. Humans have neither the time nor the ability. Then we help them develop the ability, Zaleth insisted. They use technology to create artificial telepathy. Perhaps they can use technology to create artificial shielding. And if they fail? Tharun asked. How long do we wait while billions suffer their broadcast? The chamber erupted in argument. Some species wanted humanity destroyed immediately. Others wanted quarantine, trapping Earth behind a consciousness-dampening field. A few, very few, agreed with Zaleth. Sarah stood there, helpless, while aliens decided the fate of her species. Dr. Miranis turned to her. There is something I need to show the Council. Something I learned while studying humanity. May I access your network? What? Why? Trust me, Sarah nodded. She pulled out her neural interface device and handed it to Miranis. The alien looked at it, then placed it against her forehead. Her body went rigid. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then Miranis began to glow. Not with light, but with something else. Energy. Emotion. The chamber fell silent as every telepathic being present felt it. Miranis was channeling the human network directly, letting the Council experience it without filters. Sarah felt it too through her connection. She felt joy from a wedding in Tokyo, fear from a child taking a test in Brazil, grief from a funeral in Egypt, love from parents watching their baby sleep in Canada, anger from an argument in Russia, hope from a scientist making a discovery in India. All of it at once. Billions of humans living and feeling and thinking and dreaming, and underneath it all, something else. Creativity. Humans imagining things that didn't exist and then building them. Humans making art for no reason except that it was beautiful. Humans telling stories, making music, writing poetry, laughing at jokes. Humans being ridiculous and profound and messy and brilliant. Miranis removed the device. She was shaking. That, she said to the Council, is what you're proposing to destroy. The chamber was silent. Yes, humans are loud, Miranis continued. Yes, they're chaotic. But they're also more alive than any species I've ever studied. They feel everything at maximum intensity because they never had to hide it. They create beauty out of pain. They laugh in the face of death. They love with their entire being. They're messy and irrational and contradictory, but that's because they're real in a way we've forgotten how to be. She looked around at all the Council members. We evolved psychic abilities and we learned control, but what did we lose? When was the last time any of you felt joy like that wedding in Tokyo? When did you last create something just because it made you happy? We learned to be quiet, to be orderly, to be controlled. We learned to survive. But humans, they learned to live. Beautiful words, Tharun said. But they don't solve the problem. They're still causing harm. Then we teach them control without killing what makes them special, Miranis said. Yes, it will be hard. Yes, it will take time. But they're worth it. The galaxy needs them. We need them. Even if we don't know it yet. Tharun was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Commander Zaleth, do you believe humanity can learn control? Zaleth stepped forward. Yes, Elder, I do. They built a global telepathic network in less than 2 centuries since we last observed them. They went from not knowing aliens existed to standing here arguing for their survival. They're adaptable. They're clever. They'll find a way, and if they don't, then I will personally lead the containment fleet. But give them a chance, please. Tharun turned to the Council. This requires a vote. All in favor of allowing humanity time to learn control? Lights began to appear throughout the chamber. Green for yes, red for no. Sarah watched them count up, her heart pounding. It was close. So close. Finally, Tharun spoke. The measure passes. By a margin of 2 votes, humanity will be given 1 standard year to demonstrate significant progress in consciousness control. Dr. Miranis and Commander Zaleth will oversee the training. If they fail, containment protocols will be enacted. Sarah's legs nearly gave out. A year. They had a year to learn something that took other species their entire childhoods. Thank you, she whispered. Tharun looked at her with ancient eyes. Don't thank us yet, human. You have no idea how hard this will be. Learning to quiet your thoughts, to hide your feelings, to control what you broadcast. It goes against everything your species is. You're asking humans to stop being human. Sarah met his gaze. Then we'll figure out how to do it while still staying ourselves. That's what humans do. We adapt, we survive, we find a way. For the first time, the ancient being made a sound that might have been a laugh. Perhaps you will. I find myself hoping you do. The galaxy could use some noise. 6 months had passed since the council's decision. Sarah Chen stood in what used to be a sports stadium in Beijing, now converted into a massive consciousness training facility. 50,000 humans sat in meditation, their neural interfaces glowing, softly as they practiced mental shielding techniques. Taught by alien instructors, it wasn't going well. Focus on the boundaries of your mind, said Dr. Moranis through the speaker system. Imagine a wall around your thoughts. Keep your feelings inside, Sarah tried. She really did. But every time she built the mental wall, something inside her wanted to tear it down. It felt wrong, lonely, like putting herself in a cage. Around her, others were having the same problem. A woman started crying. A man stood up and walked out, frustrated. Children did better than adults, but even they struggled. Miranis appeared beside Sarah, moving through the crowd. How are you doing? The alien asked. Terrible, Sarah admitted. It feels like trying not to breathe. Every instinct I have fights against it. I know. That's what makes you human. Miranis sighed, a sound like water over rocks. We're not getting anywhere with traditional methods. Human brains aren't built for this, so what do? I don't know. And we're running out of time. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She sat in her apartment, connected to the GCN, feeling the thoughts and emotions of billions of people. It was beautiful and overwhelming and completely natural to her now. Then she had an idea. Computer, she said, pull up all the data on alien mental shielding techniques. Cross-reference with human neural interface technology. Her AI assistant went to work. Hours passed. The sun came up. Sarah's coffee got cold, but slowly a pattern emerged. The aliens were trying to teach humans to be quiet, to suppress their broadcasts, to hide. But what if that was the wrong approach? What if instead of trying to stop broadcasting, humans learned to control what they broadcast? Sarah started coding. She pulled in her old team. They worked for 3 days straight. Dr. Moranis and Commander Zelith watched with confusion, then with growing interest. What are you doing? Zelith asked. Humans can't learn to be quiet, Sarah explained, her eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. That's not who we are. But we can learn to direct the noise like a radio that broadcasts on different channels. Right now we're screaming on all frequencies at once. But what if we could choose the frequency? Shield the private thoughts, broadcast the ones we want to share? She pulled up a simulation. This is adaptive consciousness filtering. It uses our neural interfaces as volume controls. We can't turn off our thoughts, but we can turn them way down for everyone except who we choose. And the really private stuff? That gets encrypted, filtered through algorithms before it ever reaches the network. Miranis studied the code. You're not using biological shielding at all. You're using technology to do what our minds do naturally. Exactly. We can't evolve psychic abilities in a year, but we can build something that does the same job. Will it work? Zelith asked. Let's find out. They started with volunteers, 1,000 humans all fitted with the new filtering technology. The change was immediate. Their mental signatures became quieter, more controlled, still present, still uniquely human but manageable. Then 10,000, then 1,000,000. The technology spread through the GCN like wildfire. Humans adapted to it quickly, learning to adjust their mental volume the way they adjusted the volume on their phones. 3 months after Sarah's breakthrough, Commander Zelith stood before the council again. The human frequency has decreased by 70%, she reported. They're still louder than any council species, but within tolerable levels. Sensitive species report significant relief. Only 70%? Someone asked. Why not complete silence? Dr. Moranis stepped forward. Because complete silence would destroy what makes them valuable. The remaining 30% is humans being human, and I propose we not only accept it but embrace it. She activated a display. In the past 6 months, human consciousness has had unexpected effects on the galaxy. Artists from the Quentar have created works influenced by human emotion. Scientists report breakthrough ideas after exposure to human thought patterns. Even Tharun himself admitted to feeling something he called nostalgia for the first time in centuries. What are you suggesting? Elder Tharun asked. I'm suggesting that humans aren't a psychic hazard. They're a psychic resource. Yes, they think differently than us. Yes, they're loud. But maybe we needed some noise. Maybe we got too quiet. The chamber filled with murmurs. It was an outrageous idea, but no one could deny the changes they'd felt. Very well, Tyrone said. Humanity may join the council as provisional members. They will be given full rights in 20 years after we see if they can maintain control. Sarah, watching from Earth, felt tears run down her face. They'd done it. Humanity had a place among the stars. But the real surprise came 2 weeks later. Sarah was working in her lab when every sensor in the building started beeping. Not emergency beeps. Discovery beeps, what is that? She asked her team. It's a response signal, someone said, voice shaking. To our frequency. But it's not from any council species. Where's it coming from? They traced it. The signal originated from a dead system, 12 light years away. A system the council had surveyed centuries ago and found nothing. But it wasn't nothing anymore. Something was waking up there. Commander Zealeth's ship arrived at the system 3 days later. What they found changed everything. Cities. Ancient cities built into asteroids and moons, all dormant, all dark, until human consciousness had washed over them like a wake-up call. Now they were lighting up, powering on, and sending signals back. What are they? Zealeth asked. Dr. Marana studied the architecture, the technology, the biosigns that were starting to appear. Her voice was shaking when she answered. They're the Vrentok, the species the Council destroyed 3,000 years ago. Except we didn't destroy them, they hid. They shielded themselves so perfectly that they seemed dead. They've been sleeping for millennia, waiting. Waiting for what? For someone like them. Someone loud enough to hear through their shields. Someone who broadcasts consciousness the way they did. On the largest city ship, something stirred. A being that had slept for 3,000 years opened its eyes. It felt the human frequency and recognized it. Kin, family, another species that refused to be quiet. It sent a message, simple and clear, transmitted in the language of consciousness that humans and Vrentok shared. We hear you. We are coming home. Sarah received the message on Earth. She didn't understand all of it, but she understood enough. Humanity wasn't alone in being loud, and the galaxy, which had been silent for so long, was about to get much, much noisier. She smiled. Elder Tharoon had been right about one thing. The galaxy could use some noise. She opened a connection to the GCN, reaching out to every human on Earth and in the colonies. People of Earth, she said, I have news. We're not the only ones. There's another species like us out there. They've been hiding, sleeping, waiting, and we woke them up. The response was immediate. 8.7 billion humans feeling the same thing at once. Curiosity, excitement, hope, and just a little bit of fear. But mostly hope. Because if there were 2 loud species, maybe there were more. Maybe the quiet galaxy had been too quiet for too long. Maybe it was time for consciousness to be heard again, in all its messy, beautiful, chaotic glory. The frequency that had nearly destroyed humanity now became their greatest gift to the universe. Sarah looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vrentok were coming. Somewhere out there, maybe others were waking too. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had barely begun to make noise. Let them hear us, she whispered. Let them all hear us. The universe, silent for eons, began to sing. Not with one voice, but with billions. Human voices. Vrentok voices, and maybe, someday even more. The age of quiet was over. The age of consciousness had begun. And at the center of it all, broadcasting with joy and wonder and uncontrolled enthusiasm, was humanity. Loud, messy, impossible humanity. Exactly as they were meant to be.